we're going to want to keep track of this item state, because we're going to be adding stuff, we're going to be updating stuff, deleting stuff. And when we load the app, there's no items at all. So we need to get the items and add them all in. So we want some state here. Const item. Set items. Use state. So remember, use state is a React hook. And this is going to return, it returns an array, but really it returns two things in that array that we can pull out as variables. It returns what I call a getter. It's a way to get whatever you want, like the state. And then it gives you a way to set that particular state. So that data can be anything. It can be an array, it could be an object, it could be a number. You could switch from a number to an array, but generally it's going to be one type of data, and then you're going to keep it that type. So items would make sense to be in an array, right? So I think I could default this to either null, because when we first load this, we're not going to have any items. We need to click the button to actually get them. So I could set that to null by default or a empty array. So I think an empty array would be a good idea. And then once we finally, right here, this res.data, that is the response, it's the items from our database. So this is where I want to set items. Oops, sorry, res.data. Because we logged that in the console. See, there's our items. That's res.data. So once we get it, let's set items to that. And then just for like testing, we could do like items, not length. So I refresh this. So that's 0 because it's just an empty array. I click get items. I got the items, that set it, boom. Now it's 10. We might want some other state. Let's say we want like a loader. Like, is this page loading? Is it grabbing data? I could just create some state. Loading. And so this is just going to be the state. I'm calling it loading, and then I get the function to just change that state. By default, it's not going to be loading because we have to click the button for this to be true. So by default, loading is going to be false. But when we click get items, the first thing I could do is I could say set loading to true. And then after I'm done, right here, I could set loading to false. I'd also want to set loading to false in my catch. So I mean, like, I got it. Like, it tried, it failed. I'm no longer loading. So I could, and then I could come down here, have my loading state kind of dictate some UI. So loading. This is not going to be lovely UI, but we could just say, if we're loading, if it's loading, we're going to say loading. If it's not, we're going to say not loading. Let's refresh that. See, right now it's not loading. I click get items. It's super fast, but can you see it like kind of tweak? It says loading for a second. It's just, this call is really quick because I don't have to actually go to a server. It's just on my computer. I could put like a, how could I do this? Anyway, but there's how we could use, so we can have multiple use state. Like I want to have some state that's like determining whether or not this is loading. I can just create that. And this is one of the like fun things about React. It's like, oh, you need something. Oh, let's just create some state, or let's pass down props for that. And then we can do it. So you can kind of just do these things as need be. I'm going to get rid of this loading thing. Okay, now this is a little different than what we did yesterday. So yesterday we just like rendered all the items on this app page, but we're going to try to like make this a little cleaner today. So I made an items component, and this is going to be responsible for like looping over the items. So I actually need to pass the items down to this one as props. So now this item component gets an items prop, which is my item state. So I'm using the word items here 3 times. Those are 3 different things. This capital items, that's the name of my component. This, and it's even color coded different here in VS Code. This orange items, this is the name of my prop items. And this yellow items, this is my state. That's going to be my actual value of the items. That will be like the actual array. And this is, I know it's like I'm using this items 3 times, but this I think would be how you would want to name they would all want, you would want them all to be named items. There's a nice little VS Code trick that works. It works on some things. If you like command, so hover over like this items component and hit command and then click on it, that takes you to that component. Then if you hit control minus, that will take you to like the last place you were. So that can be like a quick way to navigate.
So you hover over it and press command, you said?
Command and then click it.
Command and click it.
And then control minus to go back. Control minus just goes back to where like wherever you like clicked on the cursor. So it's kind of like a history. Okay. So now that we're in items.js, we're going to get, and I'm going to do ES60 structuring right here. We're going to get this items prop. And so now here I can do items dot length. Kind of just the same thing I was doing. So there's, now it's just showing the length underneath that header. I click it items. Oh, set loading is not defined. Sorry. So my app.js, I got rid of this. Can refresh that. Get items, boom, 10. So now I know I'm like passing that items prop down. So let's come in here and make a function render items. let's just return. Actually, let's do this right here. I'm just going to do this right here, items.map. Let's go through each item. And I'm actually going to have this return a item component. That is not defined. I'm going to want to give this a key, which is going to be the item.id. Now remember how we can like destructure over an object? Let me just name this item so it's a little more clear. This is really just an item. I can destructure over this and pass down the props. This is the same thing as me doing like ID equals item.id likes equals likes.id. I'm just taking that object and taking all the key value pairs. I could do that and I could write them out like this. Or I can do a nice little shorthand and spread out over this item object. And now that will give my item component the prop of whatever the key is, and then the value of whatever the value is of that object. Does that make sense? Maybe I just write it out both ways so we can see it. Item.id. Let's just do leg for now. What's likes? Okay. We'll look at this in 1 second. And I need to create this item component. So we can just do this in VS Code, JavaScript components, new file item. Let's import React from React. Oh, and I call this item.js, item.js. Const item equals, let's just call this props. Well, let's just destructure here. I think this is really a cleaner way to do it. So for now, we're going to get like ID likes. What else do we have? I believe we have a description. And I have to look at my schema. Category and name. So I'm kind of expecting all of these things because I'm passing it an item object, and an item object has ID, likes, description, category, and name. And for now, let's just do the name. See, by destructuring up here, it can make it a little cleaner because then I don't have to do like props.name. Right, I could do this one of two ways. I could destructure the object up there, or I could call this props. Props is an object that has the keys ID, likes, description, category, name. I think this is a little cleaner. And then we can export default item. So by separating these components out into like, we have an app, we have an items, we have an item. I think starting out, this is probably going to make it more challenging for you because we're going to have to pass props down further than if we tried to do everything in the app. But in the long run, this actually makes our code easier to work with because we're keeping we're going to keep our files cleaner. And they're just going to be doing like, it's kind of like that dry code and only having your functions do one thing. So it's going to simplify our functions. But when you're learning React, we're going to see this might get a little complicated when you're learning about props, like you have to pass a click handler like all the way down. So we'll see that example. But let's just see if this is working. So I have my item component that I go through each of my items and then I render this item component. And this is this ... item. This is a nice way to spread out all of these, like ID equals item.id, likes equals item.id likes. There's also like description, name, category. So I can save myself typing out some of that. So let's see now if this is working. So let's refresh. Get items. Boom, we blow up. I probably forgot to import item. Yeah, right here. I forgot to import item. Let's see if we can find this error. So, learning lesson right here. If you don't have your inspect open and you're like refreshing and you get items, like, and then you go to a TA and you're like, I don't know it's working, or like, I don't know why it's not working. And you like show them this, slap on your hand. You really need to be using this right click and click on this inspect element and then go to your console, because this at least, maybe you don't know what this means or you can't read that, and that's fine, but at least we want you to be looking for these errors and getting used to trying to figure them out through here, because this tells me exactly what's going on right here. Item.js, items.js line 7, item is not defined. And it might be hard. You might have a lot of these errors and you kind of have to like scroll through and look at them. But this one, there it is. This is like one of the most important parts of debugging, is finding the error and reading the error. If you get better at that skill, that's really going to help you as a developer, and it's really going to help your speed. Because now I know exactly where to look and I know exactly the problem. So let's go to, well, it's like line 7, so that's close. It's right here. This item is not defined, so I need to import it. I sometimes, like, if it's not imported, I can just like backspace it and start typing it out again, and then find it, and then tab complete it, and then that imports it. Or I could go manually write that up there. Get items. And there we go. There's our names. Question, why? So I don't have, I'm doing a map and I don't have any returns. How is that working?
Isn't it returning whatever is in the item component?
Yeah, I mean, right here, there's your return for your item component. But within here, like,
Oh, I meant for the item one, because isn't it going over to the item component when you call it right there?
yeah, well, let me show you this. Let me show you this way. If I do a const render items, I'm just gonna take this, throw it here. I get what you're saying, and that is, I guess what I'm also asking is, why don't I need a return? Why don't I need a return right here? It's actually giving me an
You have a
error.
normal parenthesis instead of a curly bracket,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So that's the first one, because in this return, I have a parentheses, so that's just ES6 that implicitly returns this item, which, yes, at least that would then return the items return. So why don't, and then I also, now I need one, if it's in another function, then I would need the return outside of the items. The reason I don't, when it, that one I would need, see, let me just get rid of this return here. If that doesn't, if the function doesn't return it, I can't wait until we don't have to use Rails with React anymore. Anyway, so now this isn't working. So this one I do need the return, because now I threw that into a separate function, and that function has to return that. So now it works. But the way I did it this time, I didn't throw it in a function. Just Command Z this. I just threw it right here within the return. So like JS, like the JavaScript interpreter just does this, and it creates that array, and then it just actually plops it right there. So it actually puts it there. So I don't need the return there.
Will you select that out?
Yeah. And does anyone need item? Let me slack out item just in case. We're going to be changing this in a second, but so there's items and item. So yeah, we're kind of getting a little nested here. Do I have my, where's this? So like, if I were to look at this, like how this looks, I have my app component. That has the items. That grabs that from the database. And then that's passed down, my items is passed down to this items. That loops over my items. But actually that goes to my item component, which renders one item. So it's kind of like a, you know, tree structure, or like a parent structure where my, I could also draw it like this. Now here's my app component. That inside of here has my, and this would be like the items. And then I render like individual item components. We could actually, let's go in and draw some boxes around these. I think this can be a good way to kind of see this. See your different components. So let's just come in to our app, add a style. Let's just do, let's just give it margin 10 pixels. And let's do a border. Just make this really obnoxious, like 3 pixels, solid. Let's have this one be black. I'm going to copy that. And then in my items, paste that in there, and let's just like change the color. Red. And then for my item, let's make that like, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. I just want to make these distinct colors just so we can see them. And then we'll give them all margins so they're separated. So there's my black. That black box is my app. The red box is my items. If I click get items, then there's my orange boxes. Let's also do this. Just while we're here. I forget the name of it, but open up a new tab in Chrome. Now I think you might have to use Chrome for this. I'm not sure. If you're on a different browser, you might be on your own, but I'm going to do React extension. Chrome, you can maybe search if you're using like Brave or something, you can use yours. But so I want to go to this React developer tools. And you're going to, I don't know what it says. I already have it, so you'll want to add it or install it. And then when you're on a React app, it should pop up as one of these tabs. If you don't see it, click on the double arrows, and then I think it's the component, this components. And there we go. So here's kind of, now it's kind of showing me, it's kind of like the inspect elements, but now it's kind of showing me that as, you know, the React component. So I have my app, and then nested inside of my app, I have my items, and then I have each item. And then I can like look at the props. So this item prop, or this item, you know, with key 9, it has all of that prop specific for that one. If I click on the items, that also gets this items props. If I click on my app, there's actually my state. There's my item state. Can I add stuff in here? Yeah, looks like I did. It's like you can delete stuff from here too. Obviously, that's not going to delete it from your database, but that's just a little useful tool to help visualize this. And you can go in and you can, you know, inspect like, well, right now, what does my state look like right now? Because I could like be developing. Let me show you this. Okay, maybe I don't have my items UI set up, but I can come in here. I can refresh. You know, I just have my app, but I can click this get items, and boom, I can see I'm setting my state properly. So even though it's not working, like the UI is not working, well, I can at least tell that like, you know, when I click get items, it actually got the items and it's setting it to state. So that can be a more useful or more convenient way than like a whole bunch of console.logs. If you get good at this, you can just use this to kind of inspect, oh, what does my state look like for this component? What do my props look like for that component? See, this items is getting items prop, which is empty. If I click get items, boom, there it is. So that's a pretty useful tool. Does this help to like, or like to visualize it like this with the colors? See, there are your components. I'd recommend you do that as you're developing them. And then, maybe we can make this look nicer in a second, but I think this, just adding a border and some margin, really does create like this visual effect of like, okay, this is an individual item component, this one too. And that they're color coded. I know that all my orange ones, those are item components. The red is my items and the black is my app. So let's just go ahead and maybe finish out our item component, just make this look a little better. So what do I want to do here? Maybe I'll just slack this out. One second. What are we going to do? Yeah, let's just slack this out. We can also destruct. So this one's taking props. It's the props params, and then it destructs above. So that's another way you're going to see this done. And then actually, I want to get this. If you want that style back, you're going to have to add it. This is probably, I should have just added that stuff. That's probably taking longer than copying and pasting this. Okay. Get our items. There we go. We have our ID, we have our likes, and then the description. So I think what we could do next is we can go ahead and maybe do the create. So let's start, and actually let me do it, add and commit. This is a good time to commit. Let's keep my commit history clean. Push this up. Okay. So let's go ahead and do our item form. So once again, we can kind of, now it's easier to separate these tasks. So I can really either think about this as doing it like from the back end or the front end. So that's one way that might make this whole thing a little simpler, because I know there's a lot of moving pieces, but now it's like I can just maybe worry about the back end and not even care about what the front end is doing. So let's do that with the back end. I'm going to go to my routes. Let's first define this route. So what's our route to create a model in Rails and just in general?
Post.
Post. Yeah, and then that goes to post items. And then to items create. And like I said, we're not the get items to items new. We don't need this. Because we're not going to give back a form. But we are going to create a form, like an item form.js, but we don't render it in a new route. So let's go back to the routes. So we have a post to items that takes us to our items create. So then I can go to my items controller. Go define my create. And I can just do this the same way that, you know, we have been doing the create method. You know, I'm going to do this method, this helper method called, you know, items params. That just sanitizes my parameters. So I'm going to do params dot require item, then dot permit all the things in my database, which would be name, description, likes, and category. And then this is just the exact same item equals item dot new. Sanitize the parameters with our helper function. And we try to save it to the database. So here we're going to render JSON. So if we do save it, we just want to render JSON. We just want to get back the item. And then that way they can, the front end can do whatever they want with that. For an error, what we actually want to do for the error, we'll do a little error stuff. I want to render JSON, and I'm going to send back in the res.data, I'm going to send back an errors key. So this would be res.data.errors. And I'm going to set that equal to item.errors. Now I'm also going to do a status unprocessable entity. Okay. And we'll trigger this error. Let's actually see this error occur. So for this error to occur, we're going to need to like somehow have this save method fail. Any ideas on how to do that?
Put in the
Something-
wrong params.
What? Well, right now I can go into my, I mean, I could go in and do an item.create and not pass it anything, and it would still work.
Oh, like if you did different attributes though than the ones that are permitted, it would still work.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it would just not, the permit, it would just remove them. It just removes them before it goes into the new. So let's say like, you know, in my params, I had this item param, and then like it had like dog, and it also had name. My sanitizer would just remove the dog param. It just filters it out before I call this new method.
What if you give the name a number, like change the data type on one of those? Would that give you an error?
That's getting close. So we could, behind the scenes, it would just convert it to the type. But we could, that's something we could check. Like if like likes, they gave us a string instead of a number. Or for name, they didn't give us a string. So and we did skip over this quite a bit with the first 2 weeks, is we could do validations. We talked about validations when we talked about models. So I could go to my item model, item.rb, and just do a validates. And I could do validates like presence name. God, I forgot how to do the syntax. Let me just Google this really quick. Validates. Let's just validates name. Sorry, it's this name presence. True. So now they have to give us a name before we save it to the database. So this is a way we could have it fail. So if they give us a form, if they give us values and it doesn't have a name, then we're going to not do that. Another thing we might want to not have in our sanitizer, even though it's in our database, maybe we don't want likes in there. Because like you create an item, it's like when you create a post on Facebook, it's like you can't just say, hey, this has like 1 million likes. Or you can't like update a post and update the likes. So that might be one, even though it's in our database, we don't want them to add that. So this would be a good example of like, you know, this is how we could remove that. So even if they tried to pass likes, it would say nope. So that's like a great example of like why we would want to sanitize these, because now they can't do that. So let's remove likes from that. And then we could like, and then we default it. We could also do that in our database, but for now, let's just do that right here, just so it's more explicit that we're seeing it. We're defaulting when someone creates, we're setting the likes to 0. Like we're controlling that. So there's our create method. So as far as the back end, I'm thinking this is done, but I want to test this. But yeah, I can't go to like localhost 3000 items. I guess I can test to see if I have a syntax error. So I guess I have a syntax error, expecting end, validates name. Oh, I think I don't need the colon after validates. So let's go to my item.rb. I had a colon after validates, which is not correct. That's not doing the post request, that's doing the get request. So these URLs do get, like it's a get request by default. So how do I test a post request? I'm just going to show this. You don't have to do this. You could do this during project time, but there's an app called Postman that you can download. I wonder if you can just, what is it? I feel like there's an app you can download. Download Postman. Download the app. And once you have that app, open up Postman. Let's see here, where, and then here it comes, Postman. So this is just a tool to do, you know, these HTTP calls. So I can give it the action and the URL. and then it'll go do the request for me. So it's like this, it's like Axios, it's like a visual user interface to do API calls. So I don't need to like go set up a React form to do it. I can just test it here. So I do need to throw in the full, for this one, you do need to like do localhost 3000. You have to throw in that full URL. So like if I do a get to localhost 3000 items and I send that, there's my data. So it actually does that request. But now I can also do like a, oh, let's do a get request to localhost 3000. See, if I do a get to localhost 3000, there's my HTML. There's my single page application right there. But now I can do a post request to localhost 3000 items. Send that. And I get this back, but what is this error? I should be getting back a different error. This is giving me back some kind of error. This is HTML. I don't want this to get back HTML. But this does actually do the request. I could check my server, see if I can find an error inside of here. Oh, boom. There it is. Can't verify CSRF token. So I thought my app was good, but nope, I forgot to, you know, disable the token stuff. So now I can catch that. I always have to Google this. Protect from forgery null session. Is that it right there? So I need to add this protect from forgery with null session in my app controller, my application controller. So I'll throw this in Slack. Okay, let's go back to VS Code. So application controller. Go ahead and throw that in here. Another thing with just like the terminal, like, or this server is really going to be important, especially once we start decoupling React and Rails, because you're not going to get those nice, because that was pretty not like when we saw that error with just Rails, like that was like just huge red text, like CSR token invalid. But now that's going to be a little harder to find. And this is where it becomes really important to start looking at your Rails server. And there's a lot of junk in here, but you know, you might want to like do a command F for like error. See if that might help you find it. Or you kind of just got to like this one, maybe just, yeah, hopefully you just scroll through it, try to see, notice how there's my post. So I could look for that where I actually did the post request to items and then kind of see, scroll down from there if I could find it. So let's try that again. Still getting another error. Back through my controller. Param is missing. So this is giving me an error because it's saying you don't have this item param. So that's actually kind of good because that that is like my, I'm having like a bad request. So what I need to do is in here, I actually need to send an item param. This is how you do it in here. It's kind of like what we did with the forms at the start. I do like the item and then the name of the key, and then I can send the value. So here I'm like trying to send likes. Let's send that. Oh wait, no, sorry, I want to do it as a key. Item, likes, and then the value can be 3. And then item, oh my gosh, likes, values 3. Let's come down here. Why does that keep doing that? Right. It just keeps on appending them right there. This is like different. Okay, let's try this. Let's just send item likes equal to 3. Okay, now it's getting the item. So my server gets that. So it says unpermitted parameter likes. So I tried to send likes. It didn't do it. And then I get back this 422, which is my unprocessable entity. Errors, name can't be blank. So this is like, it tries to save, it fails, but then it renders JSON. Let's go back to my controller. It's rendering this. See, that's what it's trying to save it and it's failing. And notice right here, it's coming back as a 422 error. So this is how on my server, this is going to cause, this will cause a 422 error. And that's what that unprocessable entity is. That's a 422 status error. Now this is a little like kind of more, this is something new. Just kind of want to just show this to you. I'm not really going to expect you to do this in your homework. But just since we haven't really talked about bad input, that's how you could do it. You would do a validation and then you try to save it, but then if it doesn't save, you don't just want it to like, you're going to want to tell them why it broke. And now we can give them a nice message saying, we can use this item.errors to like go find that message and be like, hey, you have to, name can't be blank. You need to fill that out. But yeah, if I come in here and so name is required. So now I'm going to give that one that is required. I'm going to post it. There it is. That has an ID 11, name, new thing, and the rest of those are null. Likes is defaulted to 0. And that is created. But as a backend person, now this is done. I've tested it. You know, it handles, like if someone doesn't give me a name, you know, it gives back nice JSON saying, you know, hey, name can't be blank, and gives back a 422 error. If it does successfully create it, it adds it to the database and it gives back the JSON. And then notice the status here is 200. So if I was just working on the back end, you know, this Postman is going to help me because I don't need to create, I didn't have to go in and create like a React form, which would take forever. Maybe I don't even know React. And I don't know HTML. I just know the backend stuff. Now I can come in and use Postman to test all of my endpoints. And now I know my create's done. So I'm going to go ahead and commit and push. But are there any questions? So backend done. Let's take a break. This is up on, I just committed that and pushed that up to GitHub. Let's come back at 11:45. I'll stick around for a second if there's any questions. Good.